Welcome to the Rider Guys, episode 5. I'm Larry, this is Liam. Before we get into anything here, we're just coming off of a really tough loss. I think we're both pretty pissed off, as I'm sure a lot of people are. It was the 27-10 loss at the hands of the Stampeders here in Calgary. But what I'm going to say here, first of all, I just want to say that the Riders lost this game all on their own. It wasn't the refs by any stretch of the imagination, but there's something I got to get off my chest. This whole challenge thing, especially when it comes to pass interference or illegal contact on receivers downfield, I'm sorry, but this is ruining the game. That's my opinion, and it's becoming a joke. To the point where it's borderline ridiculous. And I'm going to use that example, for instance, and you've all seen it, where the quarterback will throw to one side of the field and they'll call illegal contact on somebody completely on the other side of the field where it didn't even have anything to do with the play. And sometimes the call's borderline and it keeps the drive alive and it's a first down. But that one call late in the game there against the Riders, where their receiver, and it was McDaniels, came in and pulled up short, and it looked like he was going to take a short pass. Our DB came in behind him to rush up to see what he could do, and then McDaniels decides to turn and go deep on the play, runs into the DB, and he gets called for illegal contact on that. I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. They're turning it into, it's contact. This is football. This is tackle football. There's got to be some form of contact. And if it's incidental contact like that was, I don't see how you can throw a flag on that. Now, that's not why the Riders lost the game. The Riders lost the game because they got beat up. I think that they won one game. They puffed out their chests and thought that they were better than they were. And they came in and they got bullied by the Stampeders. They lost on the offensive side of the ball at the line of scrimmage, and they lost it at the defensive side of the ball at the line of scrimmage. They got manhandled. I just think that if the Riders are going to look at anybody, they got to look at themselves in the mirror. But I wanted to get that off my chest. This whole challenging, and I thought you were supposed to get penalties for doing this type of motion and throwing your arms in the air and making the refs look stupid. McDaniels did that all bloody night. He never got a flag for that, an unsportsmanlike conduct for that. I think it's a joke. They've got to revisit this. This challenge thing is to the point where I think it's become a little bit stupid. And they've got to do something because it's become ridiculous.
There was that point in the game where there was 20 minutes into the game and there was 2 plays because there were so many.
Yeah, at the beginning of the game there was 3 challenges in the first 3 or 4 minutes.
Dickinson challenged 3 times, 2 times in the first 2 plays of the game. He threw challenge flags.
There's a way to do it, and I'm not totally against the challenges, but I think what they need to do is they need to start to reinterpret what can be considered contact. If you pull a guy, you grab his jersey and stop him from running, you put an arm on him and twist him, you get up in his face on a deep pass and you're not even looking at the ball, that's pass interference. But a lot of this stuff that they're calling...
It's when the guy's hand is on his hip and it's pass interference because he flopped.
In the NFL, you see a lot more contact than you do in the CFL. It's football. There's going to be hand fighting. There's going to be contact. They've got to let some of this go. They've got to re-look at this. Ambrosi, our new commissioner, please look at this in the offseason. Do something about this. Let these guys be football players. They've all been brought up since they've been this tall to play football a certain way, and then they get to the professional ranks, and suddenly it becomes ballroom dancing. It's ridiculous. Something's got to be done. Anyways, I'm off my soapbox. Enough of that. Lee, what did you? Anything stand out from you?
Final score ended up being 27-10 Stampeders. And I'm just going to name off some stats really quick. Kevin Glenn, he threw 20 for 29, 203 yards, and not a single touchdown.
He had no time all night. Quite honestly, he had no time. Guys were in his face all night long. I'm not putting it on Kevin Glenn at all.
Rushing, Cameron Marshall had 9 attempts, 40 yards, and 1 touchdown. His touchdown was actually a really good touchdown because he was stuffed up at the 5-yard line and he just kept pushing into the end zone. I heard that you told me that LaFrance was going to be back, but
we didn't see him.
I didn't see him. So
hopefully, yeah. I think he was just back last week, so he's probably still getting his head around the playbook and getting himself into conditioning because he was hurt, I think, on day 2 of training camp, right? So.
And like I said, watch Jerome Messam do terrible at the beginning of the season, and then as soon as he plays the Riders, he's gonna have an amazing game. And what do you know? 135 yards and a touchdown.
He was a difference maker for sure. As well as the offensive line. I think our defensive line was manhandled. Our offensive line was incredibly manhandled. I think that those guys probably are embarrassed and should be. It wasn't a good showing at all.
Like our top receiver was Roosevelt with 57 yards on 6 catches. Like that. At the end of the game, your top receiver has 57 yards. That's terrible. Your top receiver, unless you were running that entire game, which we weren't because we only had 40 yards.
Kevin Glenn was running for his life the entire game. From the Calgary's side of things, Charleston Hughes I thought was a monster. There was that one sack where he actually pushed Cameron Marshall right back into Kevin Glenn and brought them both down. He was a beast. I think we had one win under our belt, and it almost seemed like these guys were suddenly, walking around like roosters and had their chest pumped up a little bit. We still have a lot to prove, and if that game was a measuring stick as to where we are, we got a long, long way to go. We have to do way better than that.
So Henok Mwamba had a good game. He had 9 tackles.
Yeah, he was one standout on the defensive side of the ball for sure.
I don't know. I like him. He's probably our best linebacker right now. And a new guy, or I don't know if he's like new or not, but he came in. This was his first game this year with the Riders. His name is, I believe it's Eric Darrigan, Darrigan.
Darrigan, yeah.
Yeah, he actually played pretty well.
What were his?
He had 5 tackles.
Yeah.
Which is pretty
there was some positives, but it was a really frustrating game because I think we've all seen this story too many times over the last number of years. We haven't won in Calgary in a regular season game now in 2009. We've won 2 playoff games here, which have been great, and those were awesome. But in the regular season, we just seem to get manhandled here, and it's frustrating. And that was a real frustrating game. I think everybody was feeling really optimistic coming into the game, and then they got bullied. They really did. They just got physically dominated on both sides of the ball, and when you do, that's football. You're going to lose. So looking ahead, we got Toronto this week at New Mosaic. Definitely, I think, a winnable game. What do you think, Lee? I mean, obviously, we got to shut down Ricky Ray. He's Ricky Ray of old right now, and he's having a great season. So if we can shut down him, and if we can get to him, we know he's not mobile, but that's going to be the key to the game. We've got to get to him. Otherwise, he's another guy that can pick us apart. So,
yeah, but saying winnable game with the Riders is kind of a thing that we've said for a long time, and
I'm sure Toronto's saying the same thing.
Yeah, Toronto's coming into this game 3-2. We're coming in 1-3. So. Obviously, Toronto has the advantage with the record, but like they always say with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the record doesn't show the talent on the team. It never does.
I don't think that you can say. I think it's a little too early in the season to say that this is a must-win game. But in my opinion, I really think it is. It is at this point. But I mean, it's a long season. There's still a lot of games to go. But I honestly think that this is a must-win game.
The more you lose at the beginning of the season,
makes it harder.
Meaning the more that you have to win at the end of the season.
And especially in the West here, because we all know how hard it's going to be to make the playoffs in the West. I mean,
Edmonton's undefeated. It's crazy.
So with that being said, we got the Argonauts on Saturday night. Looking forward to that. If the Riders do find a way to, I think it's a winnable game, and I think that they should win that game. They got to shut down Ricky Ray. But if they do find a way to lose, I'll tell you what, the next Rider Guys is going to be a lot of ranting and a lot of raving, and I'll be back on my soapbox for sure. Did you have anything else to add before the game?
Nope.
All right. Well, with that said, we will see you on the flip side of the Argonauts game this Saturday. In the meantime, go Riders.